What if the man you love never stopped loving someone else? One rainy night, Mai Huong discovers a hidden journal in Toan's room, revealing a life-altering truth. Diem, the quiet farm girl, once risked everything to save him. As secrets unfold and emotions unravel, Mai Huong faces a painful realization: true love isn't always hers to claim. In a powerful act of grace, she meets Diem face to face and makes a decision that could change all their lives. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more emotional love stories like this. Now, let's dive into the heart of the storm. The rain fell softly over the city that evening, a rhythmic tapping on the glass windows of Toan's apartment. The air carried the scent of wet earth and jasmine, mingled with the faint, distant sound of thunder. Inside, the warm glow of the chandelier cast a golden hue over the polished furniture. Mai Huong stood alone in Toan's bedroom, a silk scarf still in her hand, halfway through packing it neatly into his travel suitcase. She had come under the pretense of helping him prepare for his mother's upcoming birthday celebration. Toan wasn't home. He'd left for a late meeting, promising to return soon, but curiosity had begun to whisper into her thoughts. She wanted to feel closer to him, to find pieces of his life she hadn't yet seen. After all, they were supposed to be building a future together. Weren't they? Drawn to the drawer in his bedside table, she hesitated for a moment before slowly pulling it open. Inside, among a few pens, a set of cufflinks, and a small box of mints, was a worn, leather-bound journal. It was old, corners curled, cover faded, but still carefully placed, as if it held something precious. She sat down gently on the edge of the bed and opened it to the first page. The day I nearly died was the day I knew what love meant. Her breath caught. The handwriting was unmistakably Toan's, slanted, thoughtful, slightly hurried. She turned the page, heart quickening. It wasn't just a journal. It was a raw confession, a quiet place where Toan had poured his soul without fear of judgment. Entry after entry described a haunting incident, a car accident on a remote mountain road nearly a year ago. A storm. A malfunction. The brakes had failed. The car had spun off course. But what stunned her was what came next. A woman had appeared from nowhere. She had run toward the skidding car, her voice screaming his name. She had opened the door, pulled him free, pushed him to safety right before the vehicle tumbled into the ravine. She had cuts on her arms. Bruises. He remembered the blood on her hands. The trembling in her voice. The way she held him afterward, not caring about the mud or the rain. Her name was Diem. The name was etched there like a whisper of reverence, wrapped in a kind of affection Mai Huong had never seen in his eyes when he looked at her. She flipped through the pages, unable to stop, her fingers trembling slightly. I owe her my life. But more than that, I owe her the truth I'd never dared say aloud. Since that day, I haven't been able to love anyone else. The words stabbed deep. Each line undid her. She had fought so hard, fought for his mother's approval, for the family's legacy, for their matching status and shared social circles. She thought she had won. That the elegant dinners, the designer dresses, and the perfect photographs made them the ideal couple. But this journal was a quiet rebellion. A buried truth. A love story that began in blood and rain, and she had never been part of it. Mai Huong closed the book slowly, resting it in her lap. The rain continued to fall outside, mirroring the heaviness in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she felt unsure not about who she was, but about what she meant to the man she thought was hers. She sat still for a long time, the journal resting in her hands like a secret she hadn't been meant to find. The journal still rested in Mai Huong's lap, but the weight of it felt heavier now, like it had shifted something inside her, permanently. The lamp on the bedside table flickered slightly, casting long shadows across the room. The rain hadn't stopped, but she no longer noticed. Her world had gone silent. She had read the pages twice, maybe 3 times. Each word etched itself deeper into her memory, refusing to fade. It wasn't just a memory Toan had written, it was a declaration, silent and sacred. A love not loud, but unwavering. One he had never spoken aloud, perhaps even tried to deny. But here it was, written plainly and painfully, DM. It wasn't jealousy that gripped her, it was something more raw, more vulnerable. It was the slow realization that everything she had been fighting for might have been built on a foundation that didn't belong to her. Not truly. She had always been composed, always the one with the upper hand. Her elegance, her background, the admiration she received in every room, those were her shields. She wasn't used to losing. And certainly not to someone like DM, quiet, modest, a woman who worked with soil under her fingernails and wore second-hand clothes without shame. But now she understood. DM had given something Mai Huong never could. Not status, not social standing, but her very life. Her courage. Her love, shown not through grand gestures, but in the purest form, sacrifice. And Toan had remembered. In every word he wrote, in every glance she now recalled, there had been a piece of DM lingering. That soft hesitation in his eyes when Mai Huong touched his arm. The way he smiled, but never fully. The quiet moments when he stared out the window longer than necessary, as if something or someone was always pulling his thoughts elsewhere. Now it made sense. She stood up slowly, the journal pressed against her chest. For a moment, she simply walked across the room, back and forth, barefoot on the wooden floor, as if movement might help her process the aching confusion rising inside her. Her reflection in the window caught her attention, a woman draped in silk, beautiful, composed, yet undeniably alone. Was this what love looked like, from the outside? A perfect couple in photos. a celebrated match by society's standards. But without the spark, without the truth, it was nothing more than a performance. She had always thought love could be built. That effort, timing, and approval would shape something lasting. But this journal had proven her wrong. Love wasn't something you constructed. It was something that happened. In a storm. On a mountainside. In a fleeting, fragile moment where one life met another and changed forever. And she wasn't part of that story. Tears welled up, but she blinked them back. Not because she didn't want to cry, but because she didn't know if she deserved to. Diem had been silent all this time, never once using what she did as leverage. She hadn't flaunted it, hadn't used it to hold Toan back or pull him closer. She had simply loved, and then let him go. Would Mai Huong be capable of the same? She sat back down, her hand still resting over the closed journal. The question echoed in her chest, not demanding an answer, but begging for honesty. Outside, the storm began to fade into a whisper, like the final breath of a truth too long buried. And inside the room, for the first time, Mai Huong felt something break, not out of rage, but surrender. Not all battles are meant to be won. Some are meant to teach you how to let go. The morning sun broke through the last of the clouds, casting golden beams across the quiet countryside. Dew clung to the blades of grass like tiny fragments of glass, and the scent of earth after rain filled the breeze. It was a new day, yet Mai Huong felt as though she hadn't slept at all. The leather journal still sat on Toan's bedside table, untouched since she'd carefully placed it there before dawn. She hadn't told him what she had read. Not yet. There was something she needed to do first, something that had been stirring in her chest all night, refusing to let her breathe. By mid-morning, she found herself in a taxi heading out of the city, toward the green hills and gravel paths that led to Diem's modest farm. It wasn't a place Mai Huong had ever imagined herself visiting. Her world was built on marble floors and city skylines, not wooden fences and muddy boots. And yet, here she was, clutching her purse a little too tightly, eyes fixed on the passing fields like she might lose her courage if she blinked. When the car pulled up to the edge of the property, Mai Huong stepped out quietly. The place was still wet from the night storm, but it was a live rows of vegetables, blooming flowers along the fence, the soft clucking of chickens somewhere behind the house. There was a gentle rhythm to it all, like a heartbeat she hadn't known she missed. And then she saw her. Diem stood by a small rabbit hutch, crouching to scatter leaves of fresh lettuce for the white bundles of fur that nibbled eagerly. Her hair was pulled back in a loose braid, a few wisps escaping around her face, which glowed not with cosmetics or perfection, but with peace. She didn't hear Mai Huong approach at first, until the crunch of gravel under her heels gave her away. Diem turned, startled for a moment, then straightened slowly, her eyes guarded but polite. "Miss Mai Huong," she said softly, brushing her hands clean on her apron. "Did you need something?" There was no accusation in her voice. No tension. Just genuine surprise. That made it harder. Mai Huong looked at her for a long moment, words caught in her throat. She hadn't rehearsed this part. She hadn't known what to expect, to find herself angry, jealous, superior, or ashamed. But all she felt now was a quiet, trembling humility. "You saved his life," Mai Huong finally said. The words dropped into the space between them like stones in still water. Diem's expression didn't change, but her eyes flickered. "It was nothing," she said after a pause. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Mai Huong said gently, "not anyone. I wouldn't have. Not like that." The wind rustled through the trees, soft and cool against their faces. Diem lowered her gaze for a moment, as if trying to find something on the ground to anchor her. Mai Huong took a breath. "I read his journal last night." That brought Diem's eyes back to hers. Wide. Still calm, but something vulnerable passed through them like the shadow of a bird in flight. "I didn't mean to find it," Mai Huong continued. "But now I can't unsee it. Can't unread it. You didn't just save his life. You've never left him since." Diem said nothing. Her silence wasn't empty, it was full. Full of restraint. Full of quiet understanding. And perhaps, a little pain. Mai Huong offered the faintest smile, the kind you give when you're on the edge of something hard. "If he chooses you, I won't fight anymore." The two women stood facing each other, not as rivals, but as two hearts who had loved the same man in different ways. And in that moment, neither won nor lost. Some love stories aren't battles to be won, but truths to be honored. And Mai Huong, for the first time, chose to step back not out of defeat, but out of grace.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Ly Tu Diem Review. Thế là tập phim ngày hôm nay của kênh Ly Tu Diem Review đã kết thúc. Không biết mọi người thấy tập phim ngày hôm nay có hay không? Nếu mọi người thấy tập phim